Yeah.
Hello, and welcome to another wonderful episode of Submitted for Your Approval, the weekly card review show for Collective, the community-created card game where you make the cards. So the last couple weeks we had double guest extravaganza, but we have finally wrapped that up, and I am pleased to welcome again my faithful co-host Grief back to the show.
Howdy, folks.
Did you miss us? We missed you.
That's at least one thing.
Anyways, and as always, of course, my faithful panelist, Empty Folder.
Hello, everyone.
And today we are so happy to welcome a very, very special guest to the show. We have Plass.
Hello, everyone.
So Plass is actually with the Collective Design team, and he helps with single-player balance stuff. Basically, all of the single-player content you encounter, as well as like the hero balance, you make sure that that's tuned, right? Basically,
yeah.
That's what you do.
Yep.
Okay. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Starting with the Green Man. The Green Man is a 1-drop neutral 1/1 planked golem from nowhere in particular. With entrance, gain +1/+1 for each allied Green Man that has entered play previously. So I was interested to see that this got in, and I asked for some clarification regarding this. Basically, every time this ability, or every time you play a Green Man enters play, this gets +1/+1. So if you take one of these and then Vanishing Act it, it'll be a 2/2. And so this gives some really, really interesting thoughts, and I know there have been some theory crafting going on in the VC about having a Green Man deck and what that would look like. And they were basically like cooking up other Green Man support cards, and I thought that was really weird. And so I just wanted to make sure we talked about this. Grief, what do you think?
I mean, that's a cute-looking Jade Golem.
Jade Golem from where?
Hearthstone, to be honest.
Okay, so Hearthstone
Yes.
did something like I didn't know about that. So
By the way, Plass, is the card already fixed?
Was there a bug with? Is
Oh,
the
yeah, the thing is, it basically saves every instance of its effect where it gained the ability, or gained the +1/+1, so it permanently stacks even the previous amounts of +1/+1 counters. So flickering it or grave raving it could lead to it being on turn 4 a 21/21 unit.
I don't think that was even reported in the appropriate channels.
let's
So,
hope
no.
someone gets on that.
And we
Yeah.
should probably get on that. But yeah, I don't have anything against the card, but as someone who'd never really played Hearthstone or cared about it, I don't really know the impact of Jade Golem. I just know that they created the card that led to Yes Paladin or something like that. So yeah, it's a
Yeah.
cute design.
So, like, I mean, obviously it doesn't have the first part of the Turtles effect, so it's not going to be quite Turtles, but, I mean, I could imagine if we get more clone and copy effects in the game, this being, like, better, yeah, way better than Turtles, even after a fix. But it is a build-around. It is a common build-around, and I think that's exciting. If we could figure out how to get it to work, I'm confused what that would look like. What do you think, Empty?
I think without any support, this is extremely weak. Because the first one is a 1-mana 1/1, which is terrible. And then
The second one's on curve, and
yeah. And like a 1-mana 2/2, that's not a very good payoff. So you really have to play like 3 of these, or
The
be able to
first
bounce
one-
this 3 times,
yeah.
which is like a lot of effort to put in.
And so you need like Anther Clone or something. I mean, it's weird.
Yeah.
I
The
don't
other
know
thing
what
is
you...
like Jade Druid in general, which was like the main Hearthstone deck, where it just made like bigger and bigger copies of these basically.
Yeah.
It's not as good in collective because we have like chump blocking because of the blocking system. So like big stats aren't as relevant.
Yeah, but with the recent addition of Clonify and Underlabs is always a thing. This could be neat in a Spear deck, I think. But it definitely requires a lot of support to get going. What do you think, Plass?
Man, I really dislike the card, the entirety of the card being green and the affinity being neutral. That
Yeah,
really
I thought it
bothers
was
me.
Spirit, honestly.
Most people do.
That bothers me so much. But yeah, the effect itself is really a fun thing to build around, and something that we could have people do more support for it, specific support in the future. But
Yeah.
I agree that as of right now, it's rather weak.
Yeah. So I'm gonna hop on over to the next one with Greef's pick of the Broodweaver. The Broodweaver is a 3-drop spirit 2/3 spider from nowhere in particular, with ambush, leap, and when your opponent plays an action, create a web wall spider. For those of you who don't remember, web wall is a 1/2 ambusher. So actions and now, or the action spam deck, and now action hate. Grief, tell me about why you picked this card.
I think it's cute overall. It doesn't really need to just fight action spam. It's just useful in general.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, it's an ambusher for it's a 3 cost 2/3 ambusher, but still, just your opponent playing stuff will lead to it creating some tokens that can be used as jump blockers, or as sacrifice outlets, or even with next month more support for death and taxes / stacks coming in, you could actually use those as tokens that you just want to remove to basically get parity with your opponent, and probably coming out on top of it when you're just piling on more stacks effects. So in that case, this card just fits right in for a board-centric anti-action thing.
Yeah.
It's cute. It works as a design.
What do you think, Plass?
The anti-action effect is something that I usually hate to play against because I'm more of a action player in those type of decks. But this one is the card has a lot of potentials. If you change 1 or 2 numbers, I think it would be really strong. But as it is, it seems rather weak to me. Like it's just missing like 1 number somewhere. Like if you had 4 HP, it would be a big difference. The trees might be way too low.
Yeah, and it always bugs me, I guess, coming from Magic, that our spiders don't have reach. Well, they hear it's leap. And I like how this one does, and then it makes spiders that don't have leap. Like, can you like give it leap or something? Well, I guess we don't have enough flying to really justify flying hate, but it's just the incongruity that kind of bugs me.
Technically, though, we could, for the most part, look at this card and say, yeah, it has, when it's targeted by an action and kills it, it still leaves a body behind.
Yeah. So it's got that whole it wins trades type thing. Empty, what do you think of it?
Yeah, so the main problem I see with this card is that like spiders in general are very defensive, and this card is no different. Like the stat line is a 2/3 and it makes 1/2s, which is all pretty defensive stats. The problem is like the action decks we have right now, mostly action spam is like the one that's most viable, isn't really an aggressive deck. So this isn't going to really do too much against them. And that's like the main problem with spiders in general, is that they like can't really rush your opponent down, and this doesn't help that much with that because like the stats aren't offensive. As soon as we get like changes to the token rare or token text limit, I want the spider quest to come back. That's sitting for a while, but yeah, until then, I think it'll be hard for this to see too much play.
Yeah. Okay, so for Empty's pick, we have Temperance. Temperance is a 3-drop strength 2/2 angel from the 7 heavenly virtues, with flying and cards in hand that would cost less than 3, cost 3. Oh boy, this is like a little hate bearer thingy type. Oh boy. Aggro was already suffering enough. Why are we doing this? Empty, why are we doing this?
I don't think aggro is suffering at all. It's got vamps, which are really good.
So this helps aggro suffer, and it needs to suffer, is what you're saying. Okay.
I don't think this hurts aggro too much. Because like you still have, like if you're playing on curve, like the earliest I guess Promon could like rush this turn 2 with a doubloon, but like this is terrible in Promon because all your doubloons are gonna cost 3.
So okay, so this actually helps, and this actually hurts specifically Perlmaw and Vrick, right? Because
Yeah.
Vrick runs a lot of cheap actions.
Those are the two it hurts the worst. And I think the place it fits best is maybe an equipment deck or something, because you can like boost its stats, because it is a 2/2, so it can be removed pretty easily. Also, like KM could take advantage of it. It's an interesting tech card.
Yeah, okay, I see it. Plass, what do you think?
I remember seeing this art so long ago. It must be like 2 years that I've seen this art for the first time. But in the effect, it's still the same. And I dislike having these type of effects because they're just, when you play against one of these, it just feels terrible for you. Like it's like your specific deck doesn't get to play the game. But if I picked something else, it would have been fine. So I don't like those type of effects in general.
So yeah, this doesn't hurt like the Tusknute deck.
Oh, it does.
It does?
The
Oh yeah,
moment
because
they
they
call-
do
the
cost
moment-
reduction. Oh yeah. So this will
Yeah.
it'll cap that cost reduction out at 3 and not let them get away with highway robbery. It'll make them play fair, is what it'll do.
That's basically the thing of hate bears and stack stacks. Say hello to our version of Static Orb.
Yeah. So yeah, Grief, I do love your
Basically.
art because it's like a traditional, like a biblical angel, and that's really neat. How long ago
Yeah.
did you draw this?
What?
How long ago did you draw this?
It's probably a year old, maybe a little bit older.
That is wild. So Grief, tell me, what do you think of this?
I love everything about it. I also like that it basically has the correct stats for the effect and also innate evasion, so you could actually attack with it. Unlike most other hate bears we currently have in the game, where you're just sitting there and contemplating, I could hit my opponent's face with it, but technically it's more useful just sitting there, neither blocking nor attacking. At least that's not an issue with a flyer. And overall, I just like it because it makes decks play fair,
Yeah.
which I personally like a lot.
That's the two things you like the most: is decks playing fair and then cheating, mana cheats. No.
Oh, not really.
You made Tusknute.
I made Tusknute, yeah, that's true, but Tusknute is interesting.
Skeletal Seeker is a 2-drop spirit 2/1 undead from Mortstall, Realm of the Dead Things, with agile, and when this attacks with two or more units, draw an action and lose this ability. Cool. Okay, I can get behind this as a guy who, I mean, most of my single player runs any Bullock Undead. I always want to get my masses out because I love mass. It's like my favorite card. And this can also let you get out stuff like Overflowing Thoughts, Consult if you run Consults. This can let you get out a lot of things. This is really versatile. Plass, why'd you pick this?
Well, one thing is because it's a 2-mana agile that Bullock has been like missing ever since the oh man, I forgot the name of the card, but the last one that Bullock had that rotated out when the rotation happened.
Big Eye?
And what?
Was it Big Eye?
Yeah, Big Eye. Yeah, that one. And this card is a perfect example of a card designed specifically for a hero. Like you can see that this was made so you could play it in Bullock. And I love this kind of designs because they make for more fun gameplay. They enable a hero even further in their archetype. And this just fills so many holes that I think current Bullock has that I love it so much.
I definitely see it. I like that. So yeah, this looks entertaining. Grief, what do you think of it?
I like it, though I think it misses a stat point, at least on HP.
Yeah, 1 HP is always kind of a problem in this game.
Overall, I'm pretty much for this type of concept because it really wants more of a hybrid build where you have either pretty key actions that important key actions that you want to soft tutor with it, or you just run your multi-purpose shell where you either get your draw engines, maybe a removal out of it, or a recursion card. It's actually pretty good for any kind of build in Spirit, if you can manage to actually build a board. And since it's an undead, it's a 2-cost. It is basically set up to get there and trigger that effect at least once, which it only can.
Yeah. Empty, what do you think of this?
I like this card on its own. Like in a vacuum, this is great. The problem is Overflowing Thoughts exists and Unburial Sight exists. And the way this is worded, I'm assuming that that effect refreshes after it dies. Then when you bring it back with Unburial Sight, you can trigger it again and draw another action. So that's kind of scary.
So yeah, you want that to be changed to permanently lose this ability, or alternatively.
No, I think that's fine. The only reason that's a problem is because Unburial Sight exists. I think if Unburial Sight gets nerfed, this will be
there's actually a nerf on the table for it, but it would still be able to do this.
I'm hoping that gets
Yeah, I think this nerf is one of the saner nerfs that have been proposed. Obviously, that card's near and dear to my heart. I designed it. But I think this is one I definitely think you guys should go up. I would even say go up vote it. I usually have the 1 mana around to trigger it anyway, so I didn't really lose much except dies or removal easier.
I'm still of the opinion it should cost 2. And let you at least choose.
Okay. So let's talk about the Witch's Revenge. The Witch's Revenge is an 8-drop spirit invasion from Carthian with replace all units in play with Ghastly Pumpkins. What is a Ghastly Pumpkin? It is a 2/1 plant undead with Overrun and Entomb Banish this. I don't need to tell you why I like this card, so I'll talk last and I'll let Empty go first.
So I would like this card if Spirit didn't have very many board clears. The problem is they already have too many, and this is another one.
Mm-hmm.
It's also like a pseudo fog because the pumpkins can't attack that turn.
Yeah.
And it's the very strong board clear because it banishes everything. So you don't get entombs. It's basically silences. Yeah. And then, yeah. It's very good in Mary too because the pumpkins are, I guess they're just normal pumpkins. Banish themselves when they die so they can't like interrupt your graveyard stuff that you're trying to do when they die.
Yeah, so I could see you running this again in Marie, but I can also see you running it against Marie, possibly.
That is true.
Just to, yeah.
Yeah, you'd want to run this in like a more discard-oriented Marie, where like you want your board to not be able to interrupt your discard, so you can like get off your Schlurp properly.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting to see kind of what role this will play in the end. I'm almost tempted to like think I want to run this in plants with Thorn Regent, because if I play this and I play down a Thorn Regent, I get the beefier version of these plants, and I could stomp all over my opponent's little versions of these plants. But maybe I'm thinking that I'm barking up the wrong tree there. Grief, tell me about this. What do you think of this?
This is kind of a ridiculous version of a board wipe, since, let's be honest, 1 HP units aren't the hardest to remove. So just replacing the entire board of your opponent with 2 ones that basically do nothing for an entire turn, and afterwards, oh yeah, maybe just drop my Sylphina or what she's called, that basically clears my entire board, your entire board. If I have more, I don't have more units, but I don't care. You don't get anything out of it, and I only need a 4 mana card for it.
Yeah.
When this card gets in, it has to be instantly nerfed to actually fit in. And the best way to actually nerf this card is to, funny enough, make the tokens better.
Yeah, I can actually see that. That's an interesting thought. Because this is a
Making-
control card, and if the tokens are better, then it actually serves as weaker control against opponents with bigger boards. So you said when this gets in. How's this sitting? This is sitting at 11. I guess it's probably gonna hit mid-week. I mean, I'm excited about it, obviously. It's Carthy, it's common. The art is just stunning.
I know the body snatcher flavor, probably.
The what?
The body snatcher flavor, probably.
Yeah, except this is, instead of doing the aliens, we're doing the magic, which I thought was really cool. It was actually just Frank drew this art, and I said, hey, this really goes in Carthian. Can we please do this? And I think it's a beautiful addition. Plass, what do you think?
I really, really, really love the art, but I agree with what Empty said that there's just way too many board clears in Spirit. There is such a thing as too much of an effect.
Yeah, I think if they were more survivable, though, it would be in its own class, because it's not really a board clear. You get something out of it. And that could be interesting in and of itself, but it does help against those like high value entombs and stuff like that.
I think it should ready the pumpkins.
I agree. That could probably be a good change.
Give your opponent 3/2 or change every unit into a 3/2 pumpkin with overrun. This is already pretty good because at that point, sure, you can board wipe your opponent or pseudo polymorph them. But then again, you're staring down 3/2 pumpkins with overrun that are a little bit more survivable than anything else.
Yeah.
Because it's still like a Schlorp effect.
Okay, now let's go over to the wonderful world of Mashtutal. With the Dramatic Drummer, which is a 2-drop spirit 2/2 halfling for Mashtutal, with summon, trigger the summon of the first unit you play next turn that costs 3 or less an additional time. I like these halflings. I have a criticism for this design. Does anyone want to guess what it is? That effect is really, really hard to parse and pretty dang narrow. How's it actually doing? How's it sitting? 3. So I can read this. It suffers from memory issues, and that's one thing I wanted to talk about. Actually, someone else has a card there that I also wanted to talk about, the issue of effects that take place next turn pose a unique problem because it's hard for you to keep track of. It's more mental space than I think we need to take up. But what do you guys think on that? Grieve?
Summons are in a peculiar position currently.
Yeah.
There is pretty potent summon support currently, and this will just add towards it. On the other hand, do you really want to play this card on turn 2?
Almost certainly not.
Maybe turn 3, turn 4 to get a bigger summon off. It's hard for me to judge this kind of thing because I haven't seen the summon deck in action, but I heard a lot of feedback. And Empty, you're one of the people who's enjoying summon currently, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I mean, I played it a bunch.
So you have probably more insight on how good that card would probably be or how bad it would be. I like it from what it actually puts to the table for summon support, but is this a little bit would this push it over the edge? I don't know.
So do you think this fills a role that the summon deck needs?
Not really. Because the thing is with the summon deck, most of the summons that you really want to be repeating cost more than 3 mana. So it's not all that helpful for the summon deck. For like the memory issue thing, what the card could do is you could use like a reveal card block to like show this card at the start of the turn and say, this is going to happen.
Or have it animate, yeah.
Yeah.
Do the little music animation. I know there's one of those there. Yeah,
Like-
so modulo those concerns, I think that would be good. Do you think it would be balanced if it didn't have the cost restriction?
No, it would be extremely strong because you'd play this with like Sylphina and Fyra, and
Yeah.
is like the dragon that deals 7 split across all enemies. And
So
those
then
would
how would you
all be
propose?
like really
Okay.
good.
But I mean, then it's just worse chant. Well, chant with a body, I guess. Huh. Plass, what do you think?
I think you can't ever show this card to Nick because he'll have a heart attack just by reading it. And it is so complicated just trying to read the effect. It's some card that you take it and you have to read like 3 times to grasp the effect completely, and then you would still forget it as you play the game, even when you face it. It's it's really everything that Nick would hate about the card is in there. I think this is the perfect personification of the card. It
So
has the
I
cost
think, yeah.
restriction, the next turn, like
So you agree with me
everything.
on the whole memory issue thing? It needs a lot of work on that, and I think it would be totally. I mean, it would be a more interesting version of the card if it just said the next unit you play this turn, which pushes you to actually forces you to play it a little bit later in the game, and creates some really interesting tension there.
Yeah, the other thing about this design is like one of the summon deck's best combos that I can pull off is you get Sylphina in play, and then you give her Deadly Nightshade and retrigger a summon to wipe your opponent's board.
Yeah.
And this can never really do that because it triggers the summon effect when you play the card, so there's never a chance to like give Sylphina Deadly.
Yeah, okay. So this is just a card looking for a role that it doesn't really have at the moment, and it's a little confusing. So, let's talk about the Shielding Matrix. Shielding Matrix is a 3-drop neutral 0/4 object from nowhere in particular, with can't attack, and I love how you did this, MP. This was so clever. As long as this doesn't have untargetable, your other units have untargetable. 2 questions. First of all, tell me a little bit about your process coming up with this, and what happens when you have 2 of these out?
Okay, I'll do the second one first. So when you have 2 of these out, it's just the one you played last doesn't have untargetable, and the other one does.
Oh, so that's good. That's elegant. I like that.
Yeah. And then, like, obviously, when your opponent removes that one, then the other one loses untargetable, and that one turns on. Basically, the design process for this card is based around the card we featured on the show a while back, Zany Ziggy.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is actually a neat idea. How could I make this not horribly broken?
Mm-hmm.
Did I succeed? Maybe, maybe not. Since this only has 1 upvote, I'm leaning on the maybe not side. But I think this is an interesting design space, and I think with like some tuning, this could become a really interesting card.
Yeah, I think this well, of course, as a thing that grants Untar, it has interesting roles and stuff like you can't have a deck that wants to target its own unit, so that rules out stuff like equipment and KM actives, I think, right? Maybe. And some other stuff. But I don't know if this should be neutral. Maybe. I feel like granting that to just every deck is probably a bit much, especially that gives Spirit access to a bunch of untargetable, which could potentially be really problematic.
I mean, the reason I made it neutral was specifically so that it could be played in Spirit, because Spirit doesn't usually get untargetable, which I think is like kind of a bad thing. So I wanted to give them some access to it. I also really wanted this to be like good in play stacks.
Yeah.
Because I think one of their biggest problems is that like their
Duelist.
stuff is really easy to remove. So having a barrier for it would be nice.
Okay. Grief, what do you think of this?
Dude, sorry, there's nothing much to it. I liked the elegant way to actually have interactable untargetable, but outside of that, I mean, yeah, places stacks or can't attack matters would probably like it. Overall, probably I think the reason why it doesn't get a lot of votes even though it's actually a pretty good way to solve this kind of issue, is because it's untargetable and people usually complain about it. If it would be Void, people wouldn't be complaining about it. We would probably joke about it and scream affinity identities because Spirit doesn't get Void. But yeah.
Plass, what do you think?
I think I agree with everything that Grief said. Really, it's just this is a really fun way to do it, but it still brings fear in people just being untargetable. It's just I don't see this having much success just because of that.
Okay, so let's go to Stifle. Stifle is a 2-drop spirit action from nowhere in particular with silence a unit, and if you discard a unit while this is in hand, this gains rebound. So this is a big, scary, spooky Spectre card, just in time for the Halloween season. How is this doing? I'm immediately very curious. Not well. Is this fair? I actually like this just because it requires a lot of thought, and it's a more versatile silence tool than we normally have. So, Grief, this was your pick, right?
Yep.
Tell me about it.
It's pretty nuanced, since, sure, if you don't have a silence deck, you get still easy access to a 2-cost silence effect, and silence is pretty strong in the order of bounce, exhaust, and silence effects. It's still high up there. On the other hand, if you can actually manage to discard stuff during your turn, even off affinity, this is actually still good, since reputable silence can help you control the board, or even manage certain matchups where you can hit the key active unit, hit a unit that has this tremendously strong entomb effect, or the summon that you don't want to see re-triggered, and so on and so forth. Silence still doesn't get rid of stats, which is completely fine. But on the other hand, they spent mana and you nuked their passive/active or whatever interactable effect they want to reuse or abuse for 2 mana. And if you discard a card, it's even reusable. So I think it's one of the best silence effects that we could actually get into the game. 2 Reddit votes, I mean, that could be anything in game. So I hope this gets in, because it's more on the more flexible sides of disruption, and silence is a little bit underrepresented in our game currently.
Yeah, because there's a lot of units that silencing them is just about as good as killing them. And so that's interesting. Plass, what do you think of this?
I really like how the card was made, like the whole effect and how you can have potential to go infinite, but if you play around it. But it's just that I don't think these types of effects, I think, have trouble getting into the game, just because when people see a card that silences, they think of their stuff getting silenced, and they think that's no fun. I'm not gonna upvote this. I don't want this in the game. So this kind of suffers from that. But overall, I think it might get broken depending on the rest of the card pool, but you probably wouldn't be. It's really well balanced.
Well, it's like
fun to play around.
Yeah. Well, it's like Magic the Gathering picked up the 2 counter standard for new sets, where they try to have roughly 1 soft counter and 1 hard counter and no more, because people hate counters so much because they always see their stuff getting countered. And the control players are a smaller subset of the whole group. One thing I do wish this did, actually. So this is green, this is in spirit, this is in discard. I wish that APRA had leaned in more to like the Spectre flavor and had this been like you're like scaring the unit, scaring it to death kind of type thing. And I think that would have been added a lot to the card as far as the package wise and like the appeal factor. And maybe that could have hidden some of the silence that people don't like. That's my personal opinion. MD, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's very strong. I think it's I would say it's balanced. The problem with it is that it's very, very annoying, and that usually doesn't lead to very many Reddit votes.
Yeah.
Like a lot of decks, if your opponent has this, you're gonna lose. Like equipment decks are totally screwed over by this card. Like repeatable silence for every time you play an equipment, you're just ruined. Like you just can't play equipment. It also like it hurts a lot of the meta decks like summons as well. Get like really hurt by this because it takes away the summons, so you can't re-trigger it.
Yeah.
Undeads, of course, also get hurt by this because like you can't like Vigmon stuff, you can't bring it back. Yeah.
I'm hearing a lot of positives from you.
Well, that's what Apra does. Apra, for those of you in the audience who do not know, Apra tends to do a lot of meta counters. That's kind of his shtick. Stuff like Bonsai Bomber. And there's a host of others he's tried before. But yeah, I don't know. I think we all agree this is fair and interesting and would probably have a fun place in the meta. I think we also agree that this is annoying as heck, and we understand why it has such a low vote percentage. So since we're all in agreement, let's move on.
The biggest thing in Stifle, I think, is mostly because the opponent doesn't have much counterplay to it, right? If they have a deck that can just get rebound, then it's going to have an infinite silence, and you can't do much.
Yeah, not everyone's running Lissica and Acoustic Kitty, but you all should be running Acoustic Kitty. Okay, so by the way, for those of you who didn't catch this, it took me forever to figure this out, and you're going to call me so dumb for not noticing this. Go look at From the Stone and then look at this card, because they're supposed to be mirrors of each other. I learned that yesterday. I learned it this morning. From the Trash is a 1-drop spirit action from Walnocked with rebound, and put an equipment in a graveyard into your hand. It costs 1 less. Fun, fun, fun. So this also lets you steal a graveyard equipment out of your opponent's graveyard. And this is playing into the growing initiative that everyone's been having to have Spirit also be kind of secondary in equipment. And of course, it features art from Trash Duchess, who just got in. So this is doing really, really well in the vote. So like, we got to start thinking about this card as if it's gonna get into the game probably. Besides the obvious help it does to your realm, Grief, what do you think of this, and why did you pick it?
First of all, shout out to Vodka and Spikebird for that awesome collab artwork. You two did a great job on it, but why did I pick it? We had a conversation about playable cards and competitive cards, where From the Stone is playable because it's still a card advantage. It gives you random equipment and reduces its cost, so it replaces itself and maybe gives you something out of utility that you can either discard, play, or even use for KM, regardless of your build. This, on the other hand, is competitive. Depending on how you build your deck, you can actually get the correct equipment back from your graveyard into your hand and reduce its cost by 1. Is it broken? Not really, because it's still in Spirit. So even in a Penumbra deck, you're playing either 70 cards, or if you're playing it not in Penumbra, you're playing a Spirit hero. And most of our most potent equipment is in Strength, so you're actually paying enough affinity tax already for them. Or if you're taking this into your red equipment deck, you're already paying the tax for it. So sure, for the current situation, it is actually pretty good. But moving onwards with more Spirit equipment going into the game, or even neutral equipment or lower costed equipment at 1 or 0, depending on what you're building, will benefit from this.
Yeah. Empty, what do you think?
Sort of the same thoughts as Grief. I think the major thing that's going to hold the Spirit equipment deck back right now is that they don't have any Spirit equipment.
Yeah.
It's all still in Strength. But I think once they do start to get a few equipment pieces, that this will be a very strong piece in the deck. Because being able to choose what equipment you bring back is like way better than From the Stone. That just gives
Yeah,
you
From the Stone, honestly, like if that was updated to Scout tomorrow, I would mash the upvote button because it's already got that glaring weakness of sometimes you get an off affinity equipment and it's going to be more common as more, and then it just gets it back to the regular cost, I guess. But a lot of them are just utility.
Funny enough, we talked about it and we basically agreed upon that Scout would be fine when it's only 3 cards, because you could Scout would basically mean, oh yeah, I take my pre-nerf blazing shurikens.
Yeah. So like, yeah, this is definitely way more powerful than From the Stone, his counterpart. And it would be interesting to see this. I know that we're getting more and more stuff to support this. For Yucks, I submitted a Spirit equipment that's actually doing pretty well. Blade of Alliance. That one's probably borderline broken. And then, of course, we're getting more people that are getting on this train. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of becomes of this twist on the archetype. What do you think of this, Plass?
Yeah, it's way strong. It's not random. And one thing that this card made me think is just that the strength of this card depends solely on the card pool around it, so on equipments, on spirit, and equipments in general. And this is one thing that I guess is a little bit more unique to me and maybe other players, is just that when I see a card now, because of what I do, I think a lot about how it fits into single player mode and how it's going to fit with the new Sentinels and stuff. And so these cards by itself, I can see it being very fun in Sentinels, just getting back your powerful single player only equipment back with reduced cost. That seems fun. So I love this card just because of it.
Yeah, I mean, even just getting that one that grants like +1 attack and overrun and draw a card, like even just getting that off for free is pretty big. But getting anything bigger than that is just super interesting. So this is the last of your picks, right, Grief?
Yep.
Okay, so we got to start talking about how I stopped worrying and learned to love the bomb. Neutron Bomb is a 9-drop neutral device from Carthian. With deal 8 damage to all units in play, and all units have -2 attack for 3 turns. Even though it is for my realm, I wanted Grief to talk about why he picked it first.
This is a board wipe at 9 that I'm completely okay with. The only part that rubs me the wrong way, but I still like to some extent, is the -2 attack for 3 turns. Would this have been handled to like, oh yeah, units get -2 attack permanently, because that's basically something that stuff like Fallout does, which would be a nice hint towards this kind of card. Then I wouldn't have any gripes with it. So that's the only complaint I have about it. It's a neutral board wipe. It's damage based, so it can technically like stuff like Rumbling Earthquake with. On the other hand, it's still a 9-cost board wipe. So for what it does, for what it costs, and that it is neutral, I'm of the opinion this is a good baseline to look at.
Yeah, by the way, when it says all, it means all. So all units everywhere.
Yeah.
So
wait, what?
Yes. So yeah. That's why the memory issue, we talked about memory issues earlier. I'm glad we have this to circle back to. That is a huge, like, you either have to have some animation flashing every turn it's in effect, or even so, this basically stops people from playing the game for 3 turns, and it shuts down certain decks entirely. So flavor-wise, I'm going to talk about this. I guess this does fit in Carthian. We're talking like 1950s stuff, and I'm super flattered that Entropic Mage decided to include this without consulting me. And I've decided that this is a really good fit in my realm, and I started thinking of a story reason to build it in. And then I looked at the blocks, and I looked at the actual card and the role it would play in the meta, and I'm like, this needs work. Because, yeah, you're right, we do need some sort of board wipe in neutral. I think all of us are in agreement there. Plass, do you differ?
Yeah, I actually don't. I still think about the whole thing I said earlier about design
Yeah.
too much of a certain design, and I think this is included. Like we don't need this many.
Okay.
Not
So
now. Maybe after rotation.
maybe after rotation. So, anyways, but yeah. And so I think this is an interesting design. I'm glad to have it in Carthian. It needs some work. Also, I don't know if the device type is considered used. I think it's object mostly, isn't it? If anyone could hop on and tell me if there's other devices real quick. Empty, if you could check real quick, that'd be nice. Plass, tell me what you think about this while Grief's recovering, please.
Okay, yeah. So definitely, I didn't notice this part until you said it, that it's just all units, which means like all units. Like, so this affects all other effects, like the units in the deck, some tutors, some different. It's so weird. It's hard to keep track. I don't like this part of the cards only because of it. It should be just on the board, and it keeps the whole. I mean, like bomb team, like aftermath of the bomb stuff is weaker. Okay, it makes sense. But why is my stuff in the deck weaker?
That's the fallout radius. I don't know. MD, what do you think?
Yeah, so this sort of like turns the memory issues that Drummer had up to 11.
Yeah.
So like that part of it is pretty flavorful, but it's also like really problematic. The thing is, like, Promal could just rush this against like Ruach or something and be completely like in 2 or 3 turns.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that second part needs a rework. Maybe just like cast Fallout or something, or do something similar to Fallout. But like it just has so many problems because like there's the memory issues, and there's the part where like aggro decks don't get to play the game for 3 turns.
Man, what MP just said made so much sense to me. Like if the card effect was just the first part and then add Fallout to your hand.
Yeah, add Fallout to your hand, or just play. I would say force play Fallout to get those units that are still like lagging behind. Because if anything survives this, you want that thing dead, right?
Then you're basically paying 9 mana for technically an effect that would usually in succession cost you 13 to 14 mana. So I probably am on board with gaining Fallout to hand. You can actually do a little bit more in that regard with an extra card in hand.
Yeah.
Oh, for fuck's sake, two everywhere. I liked the card until you actually pointed that out.
Grief, are we good to move on? Are you okay?
Yeah, let's move on.
Okay. So, Empty decided to be a sweetheart and talk about Veteran Smuggler. Veteran Smuggler is a 1-drop neutral 1/2 trickster from nowhere in particular. With, at the end of turn, you may pay the cost of a card in your hand to play it. I called him a trickster. I would have given him a racial tribal type, but I have no idea what he is. He's just a blue guy. I should have asked Spike what he's supposed to be. Maybe he's just a blue guy. Empty, why did you pick this card?
I think it's really interesting. It basically gives you a second main phase from Magic for those of you who have played it.
That's where I got the idea from.
But like there's a lot of outplay potential with this, and like really weird things you can do with it. Because like it lets you keep your mana open to like play something proactively or remove your opponent's threat until the end of the turn. Because if you go to combat, it doesn't matter because you still get to spend your mana.
Yeah. And this does let you kind of like improvise and like certain things where you're like, if you're afraid of removal, you can sneak something past removal in certain cases. And it's like it's a bunch of really corner casey effects in one, which is what I was really thinking of for it. And it's obviously not that broken because it's pay the cost of a card and play it, but it's has the potential for a lot of fun tricks. So that's what I was thinking when I designed it. Grief, what do you think of this?
This may be the commander player and me talking, but I like Vodalkan Ori. This is Vodalcan Ori for 1 cost on a stick for 1 card. That basically says I play nothing and pass. Maybe play a fast card and end the turn on my opponent or go to combat on my opponent, so I can just see what develops, how the board plays out, and just drop a nuke on my opponent or a good unit, or basically give my next unit agile.
Yeah.
Since it starts because it drops at the end of the turn, so on and so forth. I could even play this, funny enough, in something like Dreamer.
Yeah. And one of the
Which is-
fun things about this, for those of you who didn't catch like the interactions, is if you have something that's a high value active, normally you have to leave that unit exposed for at least 1 step. This says if you're playing it cleverly with initiative, you can have it exposed not at all. But of course, it's a combo. It's a 2-card combo at that point. So a high value active, or if you're ready to slap a ward equipment on it, it basically gives the thing fast. Yeah.
So something I just thought of, in KM, you can keep the mind buff, never play the mind cards, and then just use this every time.
Ouch. That's problematic. I didn't think about that. Oops. Plass, what do you think of this?
Okay, so this is another one of these that I think it's more because of what I do that I think of this like from this perspective. But this card has one issue because of the UI. I imagine that how it works is that at the end of the turn you get a choose window and you choose if you pick a card or not. So we had a problem with the King of the Lost, Neon King of the Lost, before that every time you play a unit it will pop up a window and you have to click no because you don't want to use the effect now. So this would have a similar problem. Then even if you don't want to use the effect at the end of the turn, if you have a card that you can play, it will pop up every single time and you have to click no, and that's really, really annoying. So I don't like the card just simply because of that
But
aspect.
ideally, you're going to want to play the card every time, or close to every time, because why were you holding on to the mana otherwise, right?
Yeah, but there's scenarios, I guess like Permo, for example, keeping 1 mana, and this will probably pop up to play the Bloom.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't want promo running this, so.
I mean, I don't think it's that bad because it's like once per turn. Like KM has almost always at least 1 choose window per turn, often 2 because they're getting stuff like Duelist or the Spirit Buff.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. It's doing okay. You guys keep thinking, keep those wheels turning. You'll realize it's pretty clever. And apparently, Empty just decided to be so nice to everyone today, and let's talk about the designs of the panel that rarely get talked about. Dragonessence is a 2-drop strength dragon action from nowhere in particular, with Scour 2 and gain 1 max mana for every dragon banished this way. Grief, you've pulled this on us before with a different art, and now it has a better Spike Bird art. I'm sorry, but it is a better art. Do you think now is the time for this? Tell me the story of this card, Grief.
This is basically a relic from the time where we wanted to push dragons even further and maybe do some more scour support and maybe help them out ramp because, yeah, dragons don't really do anything early game, like at all. And this is basically just hardcore dragon support. Technically, dual master players know why I want this kind of card. Because it's still ramp, yeah, sure. It's fine enough. Technically similar to what New Horizons is, but New Horizons costs 1 more, is neutral, and guarantees you 1 max mana. This at least has to hit a dragon that you want to banish to get at least 1 max mana out of it. If you had 2 dragons that you want to banish, sure, okay, you get 2 max mana, but then again, you could probably have lost 1 or 2 of your dragons that you actually maybe wanted to play, maybe not, depends on the situation. At 2, it's completely fine. Why is it a repost? Because there were 2 complaints. First of all, people complained that it was a 3-cost card because it isn't as reliable as New Horizons. That's why people wanted it at a lower cost, especially since it's also in an affinity. And number 2, funny enough that you're talking about the art, I just took stock art before that was on the art sheet, and people complained that it didn't look like a dragon. Therefore, I asked Spike that
I thought it could have looked more dragony. This is more dragony. So yeah. Okay, so I think the Dragons deck could probably make a good use of this. I do like it's a dragon itself. And maybe now that we have a baseline with New Horizons, this is a good time for this card. I'll agree for it. Plass, what do you think?
And I sort of dislike this card, and in parts of what Griff was saying, that because it has so much like potential to just do basically nothing for 2 mana, or get 2 max mana for 2 mana, and that it's just way too much of a power spike difference between the best result and the worst possible result. It's something I'm always afraid of in the game because it depends a lot of the card pool. But right now I can see how it's balanced with the current stuff, and probably will be for the next few months. But there's always the possibility that someone makes a bunch of little dragons or stuff that gets a dragon that gets benefit when banished from the deck, for example.
Yeah.
And this could make this card go way too strong. But right now, and for the next few months, probably it's going to be fine.
Will it though, since it's still a Scour 2/4/2 and we already have Scour 4/1 or Scour 2/3 also already established ramp card?
Yeah, the big part is just hitting 2 dragons that you want to banish and getting the ramp out of the that's the only issue.
Yeah. Empty, what do you think of this?
Yeah, so I actually agree with Plass on this one. The reason I wanted to talk about this card is that I wanted to understand why Grief made a card that can give you 2 max mana for 2 mana if you win the lottery and hit 2 dragons.
It is pretty high rolling. Yeah, I see it.
Yeah. So I really like the idea, but that is a big that is a big problem for me.
You're talking to the dude who created the self-mill engine, so are you really that surprised?
I'm not surprised. I'm not happy with it though. I think if it was I think you could up it to Scour 3 or something, and then you just limit it to only giving you 1 max mana.
Yeah.
Isn't it then just New Horizon 2.0?
Yeah, it is, but it's better in Dragons.
Okay, so the Vexing Voidborn. We talk about way too many spike cards. Just something to look out for. Vexing Voidborn is a 5-drop neutral 5/4 elemental from nowhere in particular with overrun and summon, draw until you have 4 cards in hand. That is potentially neat. I am confused as to what role this plays because it's like aggro. Well, I guess this is giving aggro more gas once it hits 5. And I don't know. It's in a weird place. Explain this to me, Empty.
Yeah, so for starters, this card is basically using cursed art. I think I've seen this art on the subreddit about a dozen times and it's never got in. But yeah, I've seen some of these designs before that are low hand size payoffs. And I like this design space. They've just never gotten in. And I think this is a decent card in that design space.
Okay. That's all you got to say about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty simple effect.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in what everyone else has to say about it.
Great. Plass, what do you got to say about it?
Man, this card I don't know, in collective, it would be probably more in line. But when you think about it in any other card game, this type of effect in a vacuum would just be way too strong. That's way too much draw for 5 mana in a body with overrun.
Yeah.
But the way the collective works and how the game is pretty fast, you have reliable card draw and the power strength of the game. It would be more in line, but it still scares me a bit. It still scares me that would be way too strong.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see it. Grief, what do you think?
First of all, Spike, I have a message for you from Superson, paraphrased. What the fuck is wrong with you? Okay, now to my part of that to my part of this guide. So yeah, usually as Superson as well, just shortly before the episode said, in every other card game, this kind of effect has always been broken. Or abusable, or anything else. And technically it is as well in collective, because we have Whistle, which tutors 3 more elementals, and you could actually put a one-off of this card into your deck, gains more stats, and you usually empty your hand to actually get a cost reduction off of Wind Whistle. Meaning that, sure, you could actually fill up 3 more cards in your hand that are all units or elemental cards that now got start buffed, but at least you now have a card that reliably gives you or refills your hand while being a 6/5 with Overrun.
Yeah, so I don't know. This is potentially very, very broken. The art is super weird, interesting. I like those little faces. But yeah, I don't really have much to say on this card, to be honest.
It's a cute common.
Yeah. Oh no! It appears that Plass has not marked any picks for this week. So whatever are we going to talk about for the rest of the episode, Plass?
I mean, we could talk about the new hero.
What?
Maybe the concept of new hero.
Okay.
Of course, I'm not gonna spoil everything. Probably less than people want to, but I'm going to say just starting, and I think that's the big surprise for this time, is that when I was talking about the upcoming hero and people asked me to do a spoil, I just did a little eagle, because our characters are going to be an eagle. But there's one thing: he's not gonna be spirit, he's not gonna be mind, and he's not gonna be strength. So, well, like, are we going to get another Kumi or a neutral hero? No, it's not exactly that. It's just that we are releasing 3 new heroes, 1 for each affinity.
Yeah.
That's why it's 3 heroes. It's 3 different heroes. The thing is, they're going to cost half of the cost of an actual hero, because they're going to be similar between the 3 of them. They're all going to have the same passive and the same ultimate, but they're going to have different level 2 and level 3 between them.
So it's like the Donald Duck, his nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie.
Yeah, basically pretty much that.
That name's gonna stick now, and you're gonna have to.
That's a great way of looking at it.
So we're getting Huey, Dewey, and Louie, guys. This is official. This is confirmed. So that'll be interesting to see, like, the same hero painted in like a couple different lights and just having the necessary tweaks, so it fills out, I'm guessing, some sort of role for each of the each of the affinities needed just a little bit, while also remaining simple to understand, which is one of the big pushes that has been being made, right?
Yeah, the hero is going to be overall quite simple. The level 2 between, like, they're going to have difference level 2 and level 3.
Yeah.
But the level 2 all will summon a unit, and the level 3 will all be a hero active. They're going to be different, but they're going to be the same.
Okay, so we're pushing kind of into similar spaces we did with Marie, as far as like the template goes.
Yeah,
with the
but
level, okay.
the focus is still going to be the ultimate of Marie. The focus is level 3.
Okay.
So
okay.
the active won't be like as game changing.
Nah, it's not.
Okay. Do we get a name for any of them, or are they going to be codenamed Huey, Dewey, and Louie now and forever?
I mean, that's an amazing code name. The name is actually one thing that we usually discuss last.
Okay.
So, but we already, I know for a fact we settled on Baldwin.
Okay.
Because it's going to be a bald eagle with Darwin. So Baldwin
Okay.
is the name of one of them. they are
Are
going
they
to
like
be
related or what?
yeah, the lore behind them. They are going to be ego doctors, biology doctors, and they're all trained under different masters and follow a different path. So that's why they have similar things, but still
Okay.
different powers overall.
Okay. That sounds really fun, and I am so excited to see this. And this will give us everyone's happy, right? Because I thought there were some things we definitely needed in strength. There's some things we needed in mind, and because of like the status of debt, we needed maybe a little something in spirit, and so we get something for all three of those. Grief, you've just been awestruck this whole time.
I couldn't be happier because, funny enough, Plass, I've been basically preaching for the last month that we need more frequent hero updates.
Yeah.
Like, it would be probably easier to shake up the mentality of how people design cards or how they approach the idea of a meta game if heroes would maybe drop every 2 months instead of every 3. So being more frequent and being a little bit more out there, so even the last person would stop complaining, oh yeah, affinity identities exist and heroes do something else and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, dropping 3 heroes, regardless of if they're similar in shell, is something at least that I am really excited about. In addition to that, this actually is something that I always wanted, like template heroes that would fit into a limited game mode, which as an extension of that. By the way, Plass, when are we getting the card creator opponent as a hero?
One day.
A completely blanket hero.
Yeah. So is there anything you could say to us about a date yet, or is that still in the works?
The date is going to be, it's really just soon. Still.
Soon.
Yeah,
soon.
We don't have a specific date still.
We understand that you guys are very busy and you guys are under unique pressures, and so we're just going to leave it at that. Soon.
I can say that 90% of chance, like 90% certainly is going to be this month still.
Okay.
So yeah.
October, probably. October question marks.
Yeah. Most like 95% chance being October. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. I am so pleased with this news, and I'm so thankful to you, Plass, for the work you do, for the work the other developers do, and for being so kind to let us be the first to spoil this information. Just thank you so much for that. Thank you to Grief. It's so good to have you back, buddy. I missed you.
I'm glad to be here and shit talk the hell out of designs.
And thank you, as always, for sticking through with me through double Guestravaganza without Grief empty.
Yeah.
You glad he's back? Got the boys back together? Okay, so I think I'm done. I'm just going to leave you guys with that. Thank you very much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Remind me why I'm doing this. Play more collective and vote on more cards. Bye.
See you guys.
See you, folks.